Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another video. Thanks for joining me once again. So it's been a little while since I've made the last video. The reason for that is my iPhone was overloaded. I had a storage problem and it took ages to do this massive clean out. Anyway, very boring, but long story short, I did film the one that I'm doing today, like the same kind of video on my iPod, except for some reason that couldn't copy to the computer, so it was a complete waste of time. But that's alright because I wasn't completely happy with the way that one turned out in terms of light and picture quality, and also maybe it was too long, I went into too much detail. Me, no. Anyway, so what I'm going to do today is just a remake, and hopefully it'll be a bit more succinct. So what I'm doing in this video is just returning to my existing collection and talking about the alphabetical order of CDs. So prior to the last video, where I was up to was Cannibal Corpse The Bleeding, so I talked about the first 4 Cannibal Corpse albums, and what I'm going to do in this video is talk about the next 5 going down chronologically. So, a lot of people are familiar with Cannibal Corpse, of course, so I don't think I need to talk about these in too much detail. I'll just give my take on them and hopefully won't go on too long. Alright, so just before I get started, what I've put on in the background, this is NUNSLAUGHTER with Goat. So if you're not familiar, NUNSLAUGHTER are an underground death metal band from USA. Got quite a cult following actually, and it's very sort of old school catchy death metal. Like, I wouldn't say primitive as in caveman brutality, but like very sort of simplistic kind of death thrash kind of riffs, and like no guitar solos or anything like that, but it's just really groovy and catchy. So yeah, I've always been a big fan of NUNSLAUGHTER. This particular copy actually was given to me by my buddy Ken from Ken's Death Metal Crypt. This was all those years ago when we used to tape trade. So Ken, thanks a lot, mate, and I'm still listening to it. I like this one a lot, like so many great songs. I won't go into it now, but definitely check this out if you haven't heard this band. Also, probably my favourite album by this band is Hell's Unholy Fire. They're so brilliantly catchy. I haven't put that on in the background because if I did, it would be too distracting. So there you go, but NUNSLAUGHTER, check them out. This is Goat. Alright. So of course in the last Cannibal Corpse video, the album which I got up to was The Bleeding, so that was kind of the end of an era talking about the Chris Barnes albums, the first 4, which are of course legendary. So now what I'm going to do is go on to the next 5. So if you're not familiar with the history, I'm sure you are, after The Bleeding, lead vocalist Chris Barnes left the band to continue with his other project, 6 Feet Under, and Cannibal Corpse recruited a new vocalist, which was George Fisher, otherwise known as Corpse Grinder. So yeah, that's where I'm up to today, so we'll just go into the first album which they released together. This is Vile, of course, which came out in 1996, so the first album to feature a new vocalist. You'll see here, this is a black jewel case paper bagged cover, so this is how they were released in Australia because they were considered too offensive. It says, warning, explicit contents may offend, namely the art and lyrics. So, needless to say, I put a disclaimer up, so look away if you're offended by, you know, explicit artwork, but this is the actual cover there, so you see, that is a pretty cool, iconic design. Yeah. And this is the disc. I really like this for the close-up of the mummy's head with the barbed wire in the mouth, just nice and iconic. Also this artwork, where it's a close-up of the rotting genitalia and maggots. Photo of the band, and lyrics, which were quite clear when I first bought this, the year it came out, but now as I get older they're harder to read. But yes, so this is one of my favourite albums by the band actually. When it came out, I remember I was really excited because I thought, I wonder what Cannibal Corpse are going to sound like with the new singer, because I think at that time a lot of people thought that Chris Barnes was Cannibal Corpse, and like obviously a big part of it with his unique and aggressive lyrical style and everything, and his unique vocal style. He certainly was a big part, but that's not to say he was the band in its entirety, of course not. So like a lot of people thought, just like me I'm sure, like what will it sound like with the new singer? But anyway, any doubts which people may have had would have been quelled with the release of this album, because it was just classic. Basically, this album to me makes the previous album, The Bleeding, sound languid, lethargic, and slow. And when I say that, I don't mean it in a bad way, because of course I do like The Bleeding, as I mentioned, but this one is just a lot heavier, it's a lot faster, it's a lot more aggressive, and in general a lot more brutal. Also, the addition of George Fisher, like his vocal style is similar to Chris's, but at the same time it's different. Like on this album, it's very low and guttural, just like Chris's, except his voice is kind of more razor sharp, I think, and it just suits the increased technicality and speed which was featured on this album. So this album featured new levels of heaviness and brutality as far as I'm concerned, and that was just like a writing style which changed on the part of the musicians of the band. So yeah, I won't do a track by track breakdown, but like as I said, I really like this album. It's one of my favorites. The only track that doesn't grab me so much is Bloodlands, and I think when it first came out I thought that was a cool song because it's a slower pace, you know, which is unusual for this band because the previous albums were a lot faster. But then I do find, like, over the years, like, sometimes that song wanders a bit for me, Bloodlands. So, like, that is about the only track doesn't grab me too much, but every other one is a classic, like some of my favorites. Devoured by Vermin and Mummified in Barbed Wire, the two opening tracks, like just fast and aggressive, like really technical riffs, really great. Perverse Suffering, that's talking about those new levels of heaviness which I was referring to, like especially coupled with George's vocals, like just such a great song. Disfigured, you've got that kind of mid-pace swing to that song, and like that's a different approach for this band too, and it's very, very catchy, so I like Disfigured as well. Good lyrics in that song too. Now, track 6, Puncture Wound Massacre, would probably be one of my favourite Cannibal Corpse songs of all time. Just, you know, fast, manic, some crazy riffs, full of vitriol. Like, the lyrics are so full on, especially with the double tracking of the vocals and everything, but like, Puncture Wound Massacre, musically and lyrically, just a classic song. This was the first album to also feature an instrumental track. That was Relentless Beating, and then they carried on with a tradition with the next album anyway, so that's a good song as well. It also features the song Absolute Hatred, which was written by Rob Barrett. As far as I'm concerned, that's a very underrated song, like just very badass, heavy, catchy riff in that song, and like it just sticks in your head, so I always think Absolute Hatred has been underrated. Then track 9, Eaten From Inside, that was written by Jack Owen, the guitarist, and that features just some really unique guitar melodies, and like just the approach of that sound. It's so haunting and eerie, like it's just really, really brilliant, and it's got some like chugging mid-pace riffs and just very catchy again. Speaking of which, before this album was released, they released a demo called Created to Kill, which was the same album, or some songs from this album, featuring Chris's lyrics and vocals before he left the band, of course. And speaking honestly, as much as a fan I am of Chris Barnes, I think those Created to Kill sessions, they didn't turn out as well as this. So I think that's just an indication, in my opinion, that perhaps the change of the vocalist was fitting to the change in the musical style for this album. Hey, that's just me. But speaking of which, the song Eaten From Inside, I really like Chris's version of that song with his vocals and lyrics. That's called To Kill Myself. If you haven't heard that song, check it out. But very classic Chris Barnes lyrics, it's great. But Eaten From Inside is also brilliant. And yeah, last track, Monolith, just a brilliant album, like so many chugging, driving, strutting riffs in that song, and it's also like got some heavy and fast parts as well, but like just really, really brutal, catchy mosh breakdowns in that song. Like it's hypnotic, that song, Monolith, so brilliant. Yeah, so what can I say? First album with George Fisher on vocals, but a brilliant one and still one of my favorites. If you haven't heard it, definitely check it out. That's Cannibal Corpse with Vile. Okay, so coming up, everyone knows what's next if you're a fan of the band. This was released in 1998, this one, so 2 years later. This is, of course, Gallery of Suicide. So I've shown this before on the Metal Tag video. That's the uncensored artwork. Also iconic, I do like that one. This is the censored one showing the gallery itself. And you'll see this copy, it's got this red spine because I got this. This was a German import which I bought in Australia. Show you the disc for this. And then, of course, the booklet. So just lyrics and pictures of the band. Yeah. So when this album came out, I absolutely loved it as well. Like this album, I know like the back of my hand. I've heard it literally hundreds and hundreds of times. Like I was really excited when it first came out and listened to it a great deal. It's sort of, this album was described by many people as the experimental album in the sense, experimental album in the sense that they experimented with different speeds. There's a lot of slower songs, like they really slow down the tempos, but they also have some manic fast songs. Also in the vocal department, like George's vocals in this, he does a lot more of those high-pitched screams, and sometimes not just for, you know, certain words, but like sometimes entire lines or stanzas. So they're really just experimenting with new stuff. Sometimes it works really well. I will say this about this album, 14 tracks. speaking honestly, for me there's a few tracks which I find a little bit boring. But then again, there are a lot of songs on here. So the 4 tracks that don't really grab me that much, I'll just get those out of the way first of all, is the opening track, I Will Kill You. Yeah, it's okay, but it's never really grabbed me that much. Also, track 3, Sentence to Burn, like it's slow and chugging, but a bit repetitive in my opinion. Even though it's easy to sing along to and everything. What was the other one that didn't grab me so much? Centuries of Torment as well. Like that song has never grabbed me at all, to be honest. Like it's just like not enough hooks or something. I don't know, but it just never really appealed to me that much for some reason. And then there was one more, I think, which was, let's see. Yeah, Headless, it's okay. So like anyway, 4 tracks which I dislike, but the rest of the album is absolutely fucking brilliant. Like you've got Disposal of the Body, fast and manic with that brilliant guitar solo at the end, great vocal patterns. That song is a live favorite for good reason, I think. Also, Blood Drenched Execution, like great vocals in that song, you know, with the high-pitched shrieks and everything, and just very memorable, like with the riffs and just the patterns in that song. Also, oh yeah, Gallery of Suicide, the title track, that's one that doesn't grab me, I think because I just overkilled that song, but when I first heard it, I admit, like, with the guitar sounds and everything, it's very atmospheric. See, that's distracting. But anyway, yeah, Gallery of Suicide, not a bad song. Track 6 though, Dismembered and Molested, like another very fast, manic song, brilliant riffs in that song, and just very catchy and hypnotic in some parts, so I think an underrated song. Then you've got track 7, From Skin to Liquid. That's the instrumental track, which is very heavy, achieving new heights of heaviness. And I remember even like non-fans of death metal, like my brother, who's not a huge fan of death metal, he said he really liked that song. Also, track 8. That song, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated Cannibal Corpse songs of all time, namely Unite the Dead. That's probably my favorite track on this album. Just awesome heavy riffs in that song, you know, like like it's just extremely catchy and it reels you in. I just love that song. And also so like brilliant manic riffs in the middle and awesome guitar solo. Also lyrically that song is quite funny. It's about zombie fornication and it's got you know, like just really over the top but some funny lines in it. I think the 2 standout ones for me are Lactating Pus, yes, and Ejaculate Bile from Their Erections. You know, just yeah, quite funny. Then also, what else? Stabbed in the Throat is another favorite of mine. Like there's so many catchy riffs in that song again. And just the breakdowns as well, like there's some really good moshing parts in that, so that's brilliant. Also, Every Bone Broken is a good song, and Crushing the Despised, just another fast, manic, vitriolic song at the end. Also the bass solo at the beginning of that song. To me, it's kind of a nod to or a reprise of the bass solo at the beginning of Hammer Smash Face, you know, like but anyway, really, really good song. So, as I said, there are a few tracks, about 4 on this album, which I don't like, but 10 are absolutely brilliant, so still one of my favorites by the band, and like I said, I know it so well because I've listened to it so many times with good reason. Yeah, that's Cannibal Corpse with Gallery of Suicide. Okay. Up next, we have the 1999 album. This is Bloodthirst. So, pretty prolific release schedule from this guy. Like, Gallery of Suicide came out in 98, this was released a year later. So, interesting. Okay, so there's the disc. Then in the booklet, you have lyrics which get smaller and smaller to me. Like they're hard to read now, but it's alright, I pretty much memorized them anyway. But this is going to seem strange to some people, but when this first came out, it didn't grab me all too much, to be honest. Like, I know some people might be shocked, like a lot of people say this is their favourite Cannibal Corpse album. For me, I think at the time, the year this came out, 1999, I of course did like death metal, but I was really immersing myself in a lot of black metal that year, so I think that was just more my preoccupation at the time, so maybe I wasn't hearing this right, but I will say that over the years, this one has grown on me more and more, like it's slowly climbed the ladder towards the top. Like, I'm not ranking Cannibal Corpse albums because there's too many, but it's getting closer to the top, definitely. Like, this album just shows new levels of technicality and quirkiness with the riffs, and some just really great ways in which they achieve heaviness on this song. Like the song, what is it, Hacksaw Decapitation, like just the levels of heaviness achieved on that, absolutely brilliant. But yeah, good variety of tempos, some slow songs, some mid-pace, some fast ones. It's famous for the song Unleashing the Bloodthirsty, which is sort of like a catchy groove-driven song, very good song actually. Some of my other favorites would be Pounded into Dust, like Fast Blasting and Manic. Also Dead Human Collection, some great drumming from Paul in that song. The Spine Splitter, just some really quirky riffs in that. It's great. Love it. And like, very good song. And also the main heavy riff in that song is really good. My absolute favorite track on the album is probably Coffin Feeder. Just some really good riffs, and just it's ingenious the way they reel you in with the grooves in that song. So also great. Blowtorch Slaughter is another favorite, just with that like fast and manic with that blistering guitar solo, which is just scorching, kick-ass song. And yeah, so there's some of my favorites. But again, no real bad tracks on this album. Like, there's none I would say I actively dislike. And yeah, just for my favorites, they are absolutely top-notch songs. So another great album from Cannibal Corpse. This is Bloodthirst. Cool cover as well. Right. Alright, so up next we have the following Cannibal Corpse album, another good one by the band. This is Gore Obsessed, which came out 2001, I think. So once again, you see here, this is the Australian copy, black jewel case, paper bagged, with the 18+ sticker. Explicit contents may offend. This is a pretty cool cover art as well. Like, I don't think it's maybe not worthy of being banned, but it is a cool, iconic zombie gore album, which you've come to expect from the band. Like, pretty cool. And got the disc there. With this one, the booklet, the art layout is pretty good actually. Like, the lyrics are a bit more readable, and the portraits of the band members. Yeah, I quite like this one. Yeah. Now this album, this was one that, if I'm speaking honestly, first of all, off the record, Cannibal Corpse have never released a bad album. Not a single bad album. There's just some that I like more than others. But I will say, for a long time, I generally regarded this one closer to the bottom in terms of, you know, all of them, the ones I like. But upon giving it more chances recently, I realized it's actually very good. Like, maybe just at that time, I don't know, it didn't grab me as much or something. Like, there are a few songs I admit, just like Gallery of Suicide, which I find a little bit boring, or maybe they don't grab me as much. So basically, like maybe the last 4 songs, apart from When Death Replaces Life, that's a heavy groove driven song. It's got an even bluesy influence. That is a good song actually. But like the songs Sanded Faceless, Mutation of the Cadaver, and Grotesque, they're not bad songs, they just don't stand out and grab me as much. But like, again, there's 11 tracks on this album, the other 7 are just brilliant. Mutation of the Cadaver, while I don't like it, it does have a very impressive, like, 1 minute long scream from George, which is great. Oh, and by the way, in Gallery of Suicide, I forgot to mention, the song that I really like on that as well is Chambers of Blood, especially that scream he does in the middle. Like, it's just epic, it's really good. So, like on Mutation of the Cadaver. But anyway, the other tracks are just brilliant. So, Savage Butchery, great blasting opener, which once again proves that Cannibal Corpse are masters of subtlety, lyrically. Hatchet to the Head, that was one that never really grabbed me much at first, but now that I listen to it more, it really has some groovy riffs in it, and just memorable chorus as well, and I really like that standout lyric, hacked with brutal force until slain. Like, leaving a lot to the imagination there, as you expect. Pit of Zombies is a good track because it's a bit rocky, you know, it's groove driven. It could almost be considered like, I don't know, death metal rock or something, but like just really groove-driven riffs in that song. Great bridge in that song as well. Dormant Bodies Bursting, a nice blast fest, and then it goes into that slower part with the really heavy vocals and riffs, which are just great. You know, when he says Dormant Bodies Bursting like 4 times, it shows how much of a brilliant vocalist George is. Yeah, great song. Also Compelled to Lacerate. Again, never appeared to be that much of a standout track for me, but like, whenever I hear it, I'm singing along to it because it's catchier than I think. So good song. Drowning in Viscera, another great song, really good. And Hung and Bled, again, another quirky, interesting song. You know that riff in it, like, it just shows you what sets Cannibal Corpse apart from other death metal bands, as in their creativity with riffing and everything. I just find they explore territory which is not normally done by other bands. So really good atmospheric riffs in that song. And yeah, quite interesting lyrics as well. So yeah, no complaints. Another good album by Cannibal Corpse, and some tracks are really, really good. Yeah, nothing bad to say. There was something else I was going to say, but passed me by now. Never mind, I babbled too much anyway, but very good album if you haven't checked it out. So that's Cannibal Corpse with Gore Obsessed. Alright, good. This remake is actually shorter than the previous one. Believe it or not, I babbled on longer in that one. Just going to show you the last one for today. Again, there is a disclaimer up, so look away if you're offended by explicit artwork. This is the 2002 EP Worm Infested. Okay, so that is a pretty full-on cover art. And to show you, the disc is more the same. And maybe I shouldn't show that back part actually. So yeah, here we have, again, look away if you're offended, too late. Yeah, nice readable, well not nice, but readable lyrics here. Yeah, so for those who don't know, this is a 6-track EP which came out in 2002. It features 2 original tracks and 4 covers. So let's talk about the originals. The first track is called Systematic Elimination. That is a typical Cannibal Corpse opener, like very fast and aggressive. The kind of album opener you would expect from Cannibal Corpse. Then the second track, Worm Infested, the title track, that's my favorite track on this EP actually. Just this, it really showcases some of the band's creative riffing once again. Like just, it's got a plodding tempo, but then it goes really fast and manic with some fast technical riffs, and like the vocals are unbelievable. Like when George enunciates those lyrics along with the riff and percussive patterns, it would be so hard to do. Like I can't even actually say it, you know, like sometimes you can sing along, but like it's super fast and he enunciates all words clearly. But like, yeah, there's a great variety of tempos in that song and just a great manic atmosphere. So Worm Infested, the highlight track for me anyway. Then you have 4 covers, the first one being Demon's Night, originally by Accept from Restless and Wild album. Like great heavy song obviously, and yeah, the Cannibal Corpse cover of that is good, like it's good fun, I do like that. Then they also do a re-recording of the Undead Will Feast, which is from, of course, the Eaten Back to Life album, but of course featuring George on vocals, so I think that may have been from his audition sessions with the band, you know, where they were trying out his voice with the old material, but he does a really good job in that song and it sounds very close to Chris's voice again, but also his own style, and it's razor sharp. So yeah, the Undead Will Feast, classic song from Eaten Back to Life. Then you've also got a cover of Confessions, originally by Possessed. That cover is interesting because George impersonates Jeff Becerra's voice from Possessed, you know, which is more of a sort of like raspy, shrieky voice, but yeah, so he's not doing his usual style and mimicking the Possessed style, which is cool. And then to close, you've got a cover of No Remorse, originally done by Metallica, of course, on the Kill 'Em All album. That track was also featured as a hidden track in Gore Obsessed, but now it's yeah, included on here. Good song, yeah, catchy, fun song. So the covers are good, but my favorite, yeah, probably being Confessions actually on this one, but as I said, absolute highlight track is Worm Infested. Alright, so that's Cannibal Corpse with Worm Infested. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there for today. That's another 5 Cannibal Corpse albums, and as I've said, they're all good in my opinion. So let me know, what do you think of these albums? What's your favorite? I'd be interested to know. When I come back with the next video, I have a collection update just to change it up a bit, and then after that I will continue down the alphabet once again. So if you've lasted it throughout this, good for you, thanks very much, and I appreciate you watching. Thanks for all of your support of this channel. If you haven't subscribed yet and you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, and if you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up for the support, I'd really appreciate it. Take care guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.